All right, we are live. Feast week continues. Day two of the Maui Invitational. The not Maui Invitational, the Hawaii Invitational, I guess, this year continues. A rip-roaring first day of action that seemingly just got better as it went along yesterday. Hunter will talk through all of the games and also take a look at what we've got in store tonight, which should be arguably Final Four previews in the Final Four of the Maui Invitational.
Yeah, great day of action yesterday, especially with that nightcap Marquette versus UCLA. I know that was a late one for people on the East Coast, but that was definitely the game of the night. Marquette goes on a 17-0 run in the second half. UCLA comes back. They get two looks at the buzzer, one to win, one to tie. Doesn't fall, but a great nightcap. And yeah, definitely looking forward to the games today. Final Four caliber matchups.
And as we kind of look quickly back to the games yesterday, just kind of start at the top of the bracket. I know we were potting yesterday during the Tennessee-Syracuse game, so I personally didn't see a lot of it, but Tennessee rallies, didn't get off to a strong start there. They end up actually covering rather easily there, winning that game, I believe, by 17 points against Syracuse. Syracuse, a team, as we talked about a little bit yesterday, rebuilding first year, obviously, without Jim Boeheim there. I will talk about them against Gonzaga here in a little bit. But from a Tennessee perspective, probably not bad to get a little bit of a test out of the gates, have to buckle down in the second half, and they end up kind of taking care of business as we expected them to.
Yeah, Syracuse gave them a game early in the first half. Tennessee ended up going to the half, I think, up 4-5, and then they end up pulling away in the second half, really showing their muscle. We gave out Tennessee on the pod yesterday. I think we're both high on Tennessee. They were picked to finish first in the SEC. They looked the part last night. I think it was 73-56. One guy that really stands out is Dalton Connect, that transfer. He's looked really good. He should be moving up NBA draft boards. And then just their backcourt, Zakai Ziegler, Santiago Vescovi. They have the experience. These guys have played in a ton of college basketball games. So they're looking the part. Yeah, Tennessee versus Purdue today is going to be a marquee matchup.
And in that Purdue-Gonzaga game, Purdue wins it 73-63. Gonzaga with the halftime lead there, but Purdue starts to kind of impose their will in the second half. And the problem for Gonzaga yesterday, they go 6 of 32 from the three-point line. And I actually texted you, I think, in the first half of the Gonzaga-Purdue game. You were on the under there. I had the under later in the day in the UCLA game. And I said, we've got ourselves some under rims here in Hawaii. Not the friendly Lahaina Center rims that we've maybe been familiar with in the Maui Invitational before. The three ball basically across the board, not falling. Ryan Nembhard goes 1 of 9 of 3 for Gonzaga. Dusty Stromer, who I actually hadn't seen him play before, but I've got him penciled in as the next mustached Gonzaga player. He goes
T-shirt guy.
T-shirt guy. He's already got the flow. He just needs to get the mustache going, and he'll be well on his way to the next Gonzaga. Annoying type of player. What do you see there? Like I said, I think this game really ends up being decided by the fact that Gonzaga just goes ice cold from 3 and honestly just kept launching him to no avail.
Yeah, 6 for 32 from 3. Seriously though, these rims in this arena are tight. Like, people are shooting threes and these balls are flying off to half court, like you said yesterday. And there's just a lot of like layups and free throws that are bouncing off the rim. And usually you'd see a friendly bounce, so they're just not going down. All 4 games yesterday end up going under. So something to look at there. I'm sure the books might adjust a bit today. 6 for 32 from 3. I think a lot of that, though, you have to attribute to Purdue's defense and specifically Zach Edey. They got Gonzaga in foul trouble. Graham Ike and Antoine Watson, they were playing with 2 fouls in the first half. They're playing with 3 early second. They're playing with 4 late second. So Purdue really beat them up in the paint, and then Gonzaga just wasn't really having a lot of success there. So they had to turn to, start launching from 3. And, yeah, just ice cold. A lot of their threes not even coming close. Not a pretty performance from Gonzaga. Interested to see how they bounce back today against the Syracuse team that 12.5-point favorites. They should go out and beat them, but they're going to have to shoot that ball a lot better.
Yeah, and I think Mark Few will be disappointed with the guard play from Ryan Nembhard and Nolan Hickman yesterday for Gonzaga. Those are 2 guys that in a year, as we've talked about, kind of a new look Gonzaga team, those are 2 guys who you wouldn't expect to struggle as much as they did. And they played 39 minutes and 36 minutes respectively. So they were out there and just did not get the job done in the second half. And there's plenty of those kind of Mark Few reactions on the sideline as those guys made errors that I don't think the Purdue guards were anything special last night either, but Nemhard and Hickman disappointing for Gonzaga in my opinion.
Yeah, this Gonzaga team doesn't have the depth of other Gonzaga teams. Like you mentioned it, Nemhard goes 39 minutes, Nolan Hickman goes 36. They don't really have a guard off the bench to relieve those guys. And then we mentioned they lose Steele Ventures for the season. You know, he was an NBA draft prospect playing at the wing. If he's playing, they're probably able to move Dusty Stromer to the bench. Then they have that instant offense coming off the bench. So Mark Few's still figuring out how to put these pieces together. But yeah, they look like a team that plays 8 and really only trusts 7. So something to watch for Gonzaga this year. They're definitely going to have to stay healthy.
Yeah, and then obviously Kansas against Chaminade, that game closer than it was never close, but Kansas this year, I watched them against Kentucky. I watched them in this game. We'll talk about them obviously in the semifinal here in a little bit, but obviously they can go inside and score almost every single possession in a game against Chaminade. The Kansas guards, to me, DeJuan Harris probably specifically, he kind of keeps the throttle exactly with the minimum level of acceleration that's necessary. He stepped it up late down the stretch in that Kentucky game, kind of single-handedly brought them back down the stretch. But the Kansas guard seemed a little disinterested last night in the opener against Chaminade.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough game to get up for. You would have loved to see them come out with a little bit more fire. Just first game of the Invitational, playing the host team. Only up 39-27 at the half, which like the game's not close, but it's a lot closer than it probably should be. You know, the spread was 42.5. Second half, Kansas really opens up the lead. They had that size. We'll talk more, but like KJ Adams and Hunter Dickinson inside. KJ Adams athleticism, Hunter Dickinson sheer size at 7 feet. The fact that Dickinson can step out and knock down threes as well, Kansas is a problem.
Yeah, and we're excited to talk about that semifinal where they'll face Marquette. But as you said at the open, the UCLA Marquette game, I intended to stay up and watch the whole thing, and but I was on the fence about it, and then there was no doubt about it that I was staying up for this thing, especially with my under on the line until literally the final shot of the game. It looked good in the first half, but scoring spurt from both teams in the second half. Very fascinating game pretty much from start to finish. This UCLA team, a new look UCLA team, they've got young guards, but they're also sporting 5-star McDonald's All-Americans at multiple positions that didn't get a lot of minutes last year. Mick Cronin clearly, as he always does, has these guys coached up pretty much right out of the start of the season. This is a team that executed, played well. Adam Bona is arguably, to me, so far, what I've seen in the Pac-12, he'll be right up there for Pac-12 Player of the Year potential for what he brought to the table. And then a fascinating matchup in the second half between him and it's Iguodaro. Is that the right way? Oso Iguodaro?
Yeah,
Is that the right way to say
Oso Iguodaro.
Yeah, Oso Iguodaro. He basically starts the Marquette comeback by catching an inbounds pass in the corner, driving baseline, and reverse dunking on multiple UCLA players. And then in that stretch where I think they were on a 17-0 run at one point in the second half after falling behind by 12, he posterized some other guys. His athleticism is unbelievable. You've got Tyler Kolek, who really didn't do much at all for them, but he's just such a threat that he was a distraction for the UCLA defense. Cam Jones is nice for Marquette. They've got a lot of pieces for Shaka Smart this year, but they also, the shot selection's not great. The discipline's not great from Marquette. And it was an interesting kind of battle between Mick Cronin clearly knew they needed to execute perfectly to win this game, and they came pretty darn close to doing it. But that Marquette firepower just got him in the second half.
Yeah, it was definitely two different types of teams going at each other. UCLA is going to walk the ball up. They're going to get into their sets. Mick Cronin, like we said, like there's no coach in college basketball that hates a bad shot more than Mick Cronin. On the other side of the ball, you have Shaka Smart letting his team play free. Tyler Kolek, preseason All-American, just always kind of driving, looking around. It was actually interesting last night. Tyler Kolek was not looking for a shot at all, and he was actually overpassing. And UCLA started to adjust. A couple times he had looks at the rim. Ended up turning the ball over, looking for that extra pass. But then he goes ahead and makes that huge 3 late in the game. Marquette this year, they get up and down. They're not going to take the best shots, but this team's super athletic. That guard Sean Jones off the bench, the guy that hits the 3 late, he might be the quickest guy in college basketball. Like he can fly. And then we talked about Issa Ogadaro. They also had Joplin knocking down threes. I think he hit 5 threes, ends up with 19 points. He's the guy replacing OMP, Olivier Maxe Prosper, went to the Dallas Mavericks this year. Yeah, Marquette's got the pieces, and excited to see what they can do against Kansas tonight.
Yeah, and moving to today, again, a great start to the tournament yesterday. I think we got just what we were looking for in both of the games that we talked about being the big games of the day. We got that Purdue Gonzaga game, and Purdue kind of showing their class there in the second half. And then we got this coin flip-ish matchup between Marquette UCLA that ultimately was a fascinating second half there. Just looking at Ken Palm's got the like a win probability chart in the second half looks like a heartbeat. It's just up and down, up and down. It never quite crosses into UCLA territory, but they miss a three, and then the ball bounces back out, and they miss a layup at the buzzer. So disappointing for Mick Cronin. And I will say, I won't be too upset about it because the under does end up hitting. The refereeing in the second half absolutely terrible in that Marquette UCLA game. One of the turning points of the game, in my opinion, I think UCLA is still up by like 4 or 6. Ball goes into the post. Bona has an easy turnaround dunk, but the Marquette player basically wraps him up, which leads Bona to kind of throw an elbow that catches him high. And so they both take away, because of the foul, he doesn't get the 2 points on the easy layup that he had from his position. Then there's the technical that leads to 2 free throws for Marquette. And then Marquette gets the ball out of bounds under the baseline during this stretch of a 10-0 run. Mick Cronin absolutely furious about it. I didn't love the officiating in the second half there. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, and the frustrating part about the officiating is that they really let them play in the first half. I don't think either team even made it to the bonus, or they made it to the bonus, but it was like 6 or 7 fouls. And then out in the second half, both teams the double bonus. Yeah, you mentioned that play with Bona. It feels like in college basketball, the rules have really changed. Like you used to be able to like put your elbows up and chin the ball, but now, yeah, he ends up inadvertently, in my opinion, catching him with the elbow, and it wasn't even direct. But yeah, they go ahead and call that a technical foul. You lose the dunk, you get the free throws on the other end, you get the ball out. I don't know if Marquette scored on that possession, but you get a 4-point swing right there in a game that comes down to one bucket. That was huge. Also putting another foul on Bona. I mean, I think Bona was the best player on the floor last night, no doubt about it. So having him in constant foul trouble the whole game, like we said, 2 in the first half, gets the third, gets the fourth. That was issues. But how about that dunk where he jab stepped and went down the lane? There was that dunk, and then he had the other one where he seemingly took off from one step from the free throw line and just yammed on that guy's head.
Yeah,
Adem Bona is going to be fun to watch this year.
He's a problem. And he's a problem on the defensive end too. He's not quite as polished. Like even Bill Walton last night, there's a couple blocks that I think he could have had that either he like fouled or just he missed the block because he like mistimed it. But Marquette was very aware of where he was when they were driving the paint. There was a reasonable amount of guys who just went for the dribble through, and so they saw and they just kept dribbling on through because it's scary when he's in the paint.
He kind of has a hard time like controlling his athleticism because he jumps so high that a lot of times he's like flying through the air, like double trying to block the ball and stuff. He had one block in the first half that was wrongly called a goaltend where he pinned it like on the top of the square. I mean, he can jump out of the gym. He's just gifted.
Yeah, I'm excited for this UCLA team. Actually, let's quickly talk about them against Chaminade because I know we got burned last night, or you got burned going against Chaminade. It's 28 tonight, and it's down 27. Give me UCLA at 27. I trust Mick Cronin. He's going to be pissed after what took place last night, and I think what we saw from Chaminade last night was that Kansas had no intention of guarding them for threes. They were just like, you guys can shoot threes every possession. That's fine. And obviously, Chaminade made enough of those to keep it from being like a 40-point game. I think, again, in the Mick Cronin, I trust Mick Cronin. He's going to have him focused up. He's going to be pissed after blowing the game last night. So, again, you don't want to, I wouldn't recommend necessarily betting UCLA against Chaminade, but I am going to say give me UCLA minus 27 tonight against Chaminade.
Yeah, UCLA, Mick Cronin, like they have a very specific brand of basketball that they play. And it doesn't matter if they're playing inferior or superior competition. They walk the ball up. They run their sets, they take the shots that they practice, and then they hang their hat on the defensive end. So, yeah, if I had a lean, it would definitely be for them to cover that number against Chaminade because that team's going to play hard for 40 minutes. And they're going to be coached for 40 minutes. Like, Mick Cronin does not take anything for granted. He does not take anything lightly. He coaches his bench players the same as he coaches his starters, like even in a blowout. So, I like that lean.
And Bona is there. If there's a prop bet on does Bona have a top 10 dunk in tonight's game against Chaminade? Like if you're on Chaminade and you see him coming down the lane, get out of the way. You don't want to be on a poster for UCLA for the next decade. Like be careful if you're a Chaminade defender tonight.
Yeah, I mean he might have had I didn't see the SC top 10, but between Iso or Osa Igudoro and
Yeah.
Adem Bona, I think like 5 of their plays last night could have been top 10 material.
Yeah, the second half last night was unbelievable. For me, the most exciting second half of the year, I think, or of a half of a game that I've seen so far this year. But let's talk about the game coming up here in about 30 minutes, the other losers bracket game. Obviously, as we talked about last night, that Marquette UCLA loser, and it even stings a little bit extra because that game comes down to the final shot. Now you have to play Chaminade, which kind of is it's basically a bye day. You'll be set up to then play either Syracuse or Gonzaga. Syracuse does play Gonzaga. As we said, Syracuse team that's kind of first year under a new coach. They got up to a good start to the season. I believe they were 3-0 coming into that Tennessee game. Played a good half. The line was 13.5 earlier. I think it came down to 12.5. Yeah, you can get a plus 12.5 on Syracuse. Gonzaga's minus 12. High over under 159.5 to 160.5. As I was looking at this game earlier, I'm not super excited about betting it or really having a side, but I do think I think the line yesterday against Tennessee was like 12.5. And now we get the exact same spread with a Gonzaga team that I don't think is that great. Give me Syracuse here, the plus 12.5. Not my, again, a game I'm not that excited about betting, but I don't really see why the spread's the exact same that it was in the Tennessee game because Tennessee is much better than Gonzaga.
Yeah, I think the only thing that scares me there on the Syracuse side is given that the over/under is in the 160s, you're expecting a game that's 85 to 73 type ball game. So if Gonzaga does get out and run and they start hitting those shots, hard to believe that Gonzaga is going to shoot poorly from as poorly from three as they did last night. Have to figure that Mark Few is going to have the guys ready. Syracuse does play a free-flowing brand of basketball, and as we know, Gonzaga, like, they're always just getting to their shots and they'll let them fly as well. But these rims are really scaring me away from taking any overs today because they're some of the tightest I've seen. So yeah, that should be an interesting game. I'm expecting Gonzaga to take care of business. Don't have a lean either way. I've seen a couple of people on college basketball Twitter that are liking Syracuse plus 12.5 as a sneaky cover, but I don't have a lean here.
Yeah, like I said, I lean Syracuse, and you look at Gonzaga, the 3-point shooting. It wasn't just last night; they actually struggled in their first couple of games. The Braden Huff's 3 for 7, but other than that, Nemhard's 2 of 12, Hickman's 2 of 11, Graham Ike's 2 of 6, and he kept. You said I missed the beginning of the game, but he hit his first 2. When I turned it on, he just kept shooting, and I was like, "What's the guy doing?"
He really
Yeah.
lines it up and then lets it go.
Yeah, so and our boy Dusty Strummer is 3 for 8. So if Gonzaga gets the ball to Dusty more tonight, then or in 30 minutes, I think I'd be out on the Syracuse 12.5. But yeah, especially with the tight rims, I think it's easier to stick in a closer ball game. Give me Syracuse, but that's these are warm up bets as we get ready for the main event later this afternoon. And so let's just get to it. Let's get to the main stage. We've got 4 teams in the top 12 of KenPom. The first semifinal, 8 o'clock on ESPN. KenPom number 1, Purdue versus Tennessee number 7 in KenPom. Both teams considered Final Four contenders. Both teams considered national title contenders. Both teams picking up victories yesterday. Let's take a look at what we've got here. The most recent lines: Tennessee at plus 3.5 on Bet Rivers or on MGM, Purdue minus 2.5, and then an over under in the 132.5 to 133.5 range. So for me, I know we've been talking about the unders. We've been talking about the tight rims. I don't love a side here. I'm actually going to take the over. I'm going to take the over 132.5 here between Purdue and Tennessee. I think we talked about the Tennessee-Wisconsin game where we thought Tennessee, is going to be this slugfest defensive game. I think with Dalton Connect and the way they play, they're a little bit more free-flowing offensively than they have been in recent seasons. And then also, just looking at this Purdue team, and to your point in the Gonzaga game about Zach Edey on the inside, Purdue is going to let you shoot a lot of 3-pointers. That's part of their defensive structure. They're 314th so far on the year in letting teams take 3-point attempts. And Tennessee shooting is 60th in the country right now from 3-point range. So I think enough 3 balls fall despite the tight rims that I'm not going to take a side here. I'm going to take the over.
Yeah, I don't hate that. I mean, the thing about Zach Edey is he's such a neutralizer that if you're only going to play him straight up, he's going to get to his left shoulder. He's going to get to the baby hook. And if you're going to send two, they're going to have 3-point shooters open. And Braden Smith can knock him down. Fletcher Lawyer can knock him down. That fifth-year transfer from Southern Illinois, is it Mason Jones? He came off the
– yeah, Mason – or Lance Jones.
Lance Jones, sorry. Yeah, coming over from Southern Illinois. Sneaky, one of the best pickups in the transfer portal. Like, he can really get up and down the floor. He can really knock down shots. And then they have the freshman Miles Colvin.
Yeah, he hit
two big threes late for them. So, yeah, Purdue can knock down shots and play inside out. And then I think to your point with Tennessee, I mean, they're one of the best defensive teams in the country. But offensively this year, they've looked better than they have. And a big piece of that is Dalton Knecht coming over looking like an NBA offensive player.
And I know you texted me last night, and I think we even talked yesterday. You were positive about this Tennessee team. Now that you've seen the spread, do you have an opinion there? And then maybe just in general, who do you think wins this game?
I'm all about Tennessee. I'm believing in them pick to win the conference in the SEC. You know, we watched Auburn play. Auburn blew the doors off St. Bonaventure. Alabama's looked the part. Kentucky's been competitive. So the SEC looks good this year. Give me Tennessee money line. Give me them as the underdogs. Give me them knocking off Purdue today. Just trusting the experience, trusting them on the defensive end. And I think they can hit enough shots with their experienced backcourt.
Yeah, and then the best money line right now, plus 135 on MGM. So a nice little plus money line there in the first semifinal. And you never want to bet an over on a hope for overtime, but there's that little piece that this should be a close game coming down to the wire. If I'm on the wrong side of the over-under, I can at least be cheering for some overtime. But yeah, I like the over here. I think Purdue, and they both play at a medium pace. Like, neither of these teams are like glacial, but they're not super fast either. They play in that middle pace. So it's going to come down to Tennessee for me hitting a few 3-pointers. I think Purdue is going to get their fair share of threes up as well. And talking, less about a betting perspective, but just Purdue in general, I thought it was interesting yesterday when they lost to Fairleigh Dickinson. It was because Braden Smith and their guard play, Fletcher Lawyer as well, was just terrible against a basically low Division I opponent. I wasn't overly impressed with Purdue's guard play yesterday. They didn't really need it because, again, we spoke about how Nembhard struggled yesterday too to kind of cancel it out. I think Purdue's got depth, and I think right now, though, they're struggling. Matt Painter's struggling to figure out who to use. He's got so many guys. You mentioned the transfer. They got some freshmen coming in. I think I'm with you on Tennessee now that I talk through it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see over the course of the year how those backup guards push the starters for Purdue. I'm a big Braden Smith guy. Like, the rumors that Gonzaga offered him $500,000 to come over with NIL money from the transfer portal, he ended up turning that down. Makes you wonder when he got to stay at Purdue. But like Fletcher Lawyer, especially yesterday, really struggled. And then, like we said, Jones coming in off the bench, Miles Colvin coming in off the bench. They've got that talent, so they're really going to be pushing them. You do look at the Fairleigh Dickinson game last year, but Fletcher Lawyer and Braden, both freshmen in that game, freshmen in March. I mean, it's. Are we going to say?
I was just going to say, and that's where I think Tennessee today. When I think Tennessee, I think physical guard play. I think they're going to be up in you. Again, I don't think I'm going to bet either side here. I'm just going to root for balls going into the basket, root for the over, but I think what Tennessee does well from how they play defense, and especially the physicality of their guards, I think that will cause Purdue some trouble today. So a very interesting game for sure. Purdue doesn't force a lot of turnovers. Like, they're 224th so far in the year in forcing turnovers. I think Tennessee will force some turnovers today. Definitely a great opening semifinal, and two teams that I wouldn't say it's clash of styles, but it's certainly going to be a mismatch of styles if I was going to describe it that way.
One thing that's really interesting about Purdue is you look at Zach Edey and you'd think that they just shut down the paint and he can do it himself, but then they're susceptible from the 3-point line. So I kind of want to watch their defense a little more to see how their rotations are going and everything, but it's a bit surprising when you have the 7'4", stalwart on the back end that can block everything. Are we giving Zach Edey 7'4" these days? in shoes.
Yeah, I think in shoes, 7'4" is pretty freaking tall, and he doesn't quite look that tall from on TV. Could be the camera angles. 7'3", maybe 7'2", but at 7'4" definitely is intimidating, especially when you look at this Tennessee team. The tallest guy that I'm seeing on the roster is 6'11". And you mentioned it yesterday. What happened with Gonzaga is it wasn't necessarily that Zach Edey like dominated them, scored a bunch of points, had a crazy great game. He was solid, but it was the foul trouble that he was able to put Gonzaga in. For Tennessee, it's almost like you almost want to give him a couple baskets in exchange for not picking up the fouls due to how that can harm your depth later in the game. Because I do think one of Purdue's strengths is that they have a reasonable amount of players that can play in the game and perform.
Yeah, and that's the thing is Purdue's deep, but they also tend to play with defend without fouling. And like even Zach Edey, for being as big as he is, he's got great body control. And that's also evidence he's got great touch. Like on both ends of the floor, he's not flying into you. He's not jumping at the pump fakes. He usually keeps his feet. And then even when he's not blocking shots, like we talked about, he just changes so many shots, and it's so mental when you go in there for those, what most times you'd consider bunnies when you got 7'4" breathing down your neck. You put it a little higher off the glass. You try to get it on the glass a little quicker. And then these tight rims, like they're just rejecting those shots.
Yeah, and I mean, to your point, they don't foul. At the start of the year, they're fourth in not fouling. So for free throw attempts, for field goal attempts, they're fourth. But like I said, they're 314th in surrounding three-pointers. Now, to this point, they're sixth in the country in three-point defense. So like the threes aren't falling, but it wasn't like Gonzaga didn't have wide open looks. They just weren't going in. So I don't think it's like Purdue is some, they're contesting all these threes. They just didn't fall. So again, I don't know who's going to win this game, but I think Tennessee knocks down enough threes to get the over. In an exciting game, and you're going to take the Tennessee money line. And so a great start to the semifinals. And then the next one for me, I don't know if it's more interesting because I think both these, if I was looking at these teams, I think Tennessee and Purdue combined are more likely to make a deep run in March than Kansas. Obviously, Kansas is. I'm still not sold on this Marquette team, but in any individual game, this Marquette team can pop off and beat anyone. We get a spread and an over-under here of Kansas is -4 right now. Marquette's +4.5. The over-under 157 to 157.5. So a pretty big number there. To be fair, both Kansas and Marquette are going to get up and down the floor. Marquette wanted to run on every single possession last night. UCLA did a pretty nice job of getting back and stopping the ball defensively. What is your initial lean, either from a total side, whatever it may be, in this Kansas Marquette matchup?
I'll lean Kansas -4, and I think a big reason is Osa Ighodaro is great down low, but they don't have that big man depth, and I think it's going to be really difficult trying to contain KJ Adams and Hunter Dickinson, specifically Hunter Dickinson. Like, if there's one guy that's going to put 2 fouls on your big man in the first half of the country, it's either Zach Edey or it's Hunter Dickinson. So I think that'll be a huge part of the game is if Marquette can stay out of foul trouble trying to defend those bigs. I'm with you on Marquette, like number 4 in the country. First off, I don't think they're the best team in the Big East, so I don't think they should be ranked ahead of UConn. I'm not sure they should be ranked ahead of Creighton. They did go get that good win at Illinois, but like it's not an amazing win by any stretch of the imagination. Definitely a good win. Definitely going to be like a quad 1 probably at the end of the year. But yeah, I worry about Marquette's lack of size. And then we talk about DeJuan Harris. He can turn it down. He can turn it up. But like he's a big play guard, big time guard, clutch guard. So yeah, I trust Kansas to cover that number tonight.
Yeah, some interesting stats here. Kansas leading the country in assists per field goal percentage. Obviously, playing against Chaminade last night helps because they just dumped it in Hunter Dickinson. He started the game like 8 for 8 or something. But they've assisted 77% of their baskets. Again, a lot of that is because they just get the ball into Dickinson, and he's almost unstoppable when you let him get within 6 feet of the basket. They're 10th in 3-point percentage. They're 3rd in 2-point percentage. So Kansas has been highly efficient on the offensive end, and that does have a lot to do with DeJuan Harris. He just does what he's supposed to do. He, plays the Bill Self offense the way the Bill Self wants to play it. They're going to run a lot of those kind of pick and rolls up high that lead to Dickinson then getting the seal on the interior. And what Marquette, for me, I've watched them against Illinois and I've watched them against UCLA. They are extremely athletic. Like their game is let's use our athleticism to our advantage. Let's get open threes off of that drive and kick, and then Kolek obviously can score at each level. Kansas is also extremely athletic. I mean, we haven't even talked about Kevin McCullough. He had a triple-double last night. It's against Chaminade, so it is what it is. But you don't see a lot of college triple-doubles. He's a threat on the wing. He's long athletically. Defensively, you got KJ Adams. I mean, I still think I lean Marquette, actually, given if I had to pick a side. But that's more due to the fact that Kansas, to me, just hasn't been focused for 40 minutes yet this year. Now, I think it's the semifinal of the Maui Invitational. If there is going to be a game where they finally bring it for all 40 minutes, this is probably it. But I do agree with you that what Kansas does well, they're just a better version of what this Marquette team is. Plus, you add Hunter Dickinson on the inside. That can be my assessment of how I think about this game.
Yeah, and you mentioned a great point in Kevin McCullough. He's a great defender for this Kansas team. I think they have so much offense on this team, but when you look at the defensive side of the ball, I think Kevin McCullough leads the way. It's going to be interesting to see how Kansas matches up with Marquette tonight. I imagine you're going to put DeJuan Harris on Kolek, but then who's going to be on Cam Jones? It'll be interesting to see. Yeah, I mean, Kansas is athletic, Marquette's athletic. This game's going to be up and down. If I could only watch one game between Tennessee and Purdue and Kansas Marquette, I'd definitely take Kansas Marquette for the excitement factor.
Yeah, and we just talked about Purdue's defense, and it's I don't have the exact defensive schematics in front of me, but I imagine it comes from a similar strategy with Dickinson on the inside. Kansas is surrendering the 306th most three-point attempts in the country. So similar to Purdue in that their defense so far this year has been relying on kind of living and dying by the three. And we saw that in the Kentucky game. Kentucky was lights out in the first half from three. They built a double-digit lead, and then Kansas started to chip away at that as the threes started to not fall. Marquette's going to shoot a lot of threes as well. They're 68th in the country in three-point attempts. They were launching them last night. It kind of feels similar to the Tennessee-Purdue game in the sense that I think that game gets decided by how many threes Tennessee's able to hit. And I think tonight it's going to come down to Marquette's ability to hit the three ball.
Yeah, it can sound oversimplified, but like the three-point shot is the great equalizer in college basketball, or neutralizer. And they give up a lot of threes, but when you play a good defense, you have to look at the quality of those threes. Like a lot of times it's late shot clock and you got to get one up. I think Kansas is good defensively. And one thing Kansas is really good at doing is turning their defense into offense. When they get the ball, they like to get out and go. Hunter Dickinson kind of plays like Kevin Love a little bit, where he likes to really throw those forward passes, let the guard, especially DeJuan Harris, when he gets out in space, he can fly. It's simple, but it really will come down to if Marquette can knock down those threes tonight.
Yeah, and I would hope for a bounce-back performance, too, from Tyler Kolek for Marquette. I think last night he got off to a rough start. They fell behind, and some of those other guys were stepping up. So I think he made the right decision. He's an All-American. He said, it's not going to be about me tonight. We got to do whatever we can do to get the win. I think the matchup, between him and Harris will be very interesting, and I think because of, like we've talked about how Harris plays, Kolek needs to get off to a fast start, going to get the edge there because Harris tends to ease into the game, for a lack of a better way to describe it. That's kind of what he's done so far. So I will go, I'll take the 4.5 here on Marquette. I don't love it. But I think I just haven't seen it yet from Kansas for 40 minutes. I think it's clear what they have at their disposal. It's clear what they're going to be this year. In a game where I'm not sold on either team, I'll take the 4.5 points with Marquette, but I don't feel great about it. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, it's a tough game. Like if I had to bet a game, the excitement factors on the Kansas Marquette game, the bet would be on the Tennessee Purdue game.
Yep. And either way, this is one of those days. I talk about this golf sometimes when there's like a big golf tournament, you get all hyped up for golf and then you bet it. And let's say your bets go wrong or whatever, you don't want to ruin the vibe of these awesome games because like your bet's not going the right way. So I'll obviously have bets on these games. I'll bet what I talked about. But for me, I'm just excited to watch these teams because we're going to, whoever wins this, we're also now set up for the championship, and the third, fourth place game are going to be awesome as well. So like we're locked in now because of those teams that won the first game. I think everybody we expected to win ended up winning, even though it was a little bit difficult for Marquette. We're set up for a great championship. We're set up for a great third, fourth place game.
We're
We've
also
talked.
set up for a great fifth and sixth
Yeah.
place game because if UCLA can win and if Gonzaga can win, they're going to be playing for the fourth time in the last 2 years. I mean, these teams are playing in March and they've just had some iconic games. So yeah, even the fifth, sixth place game could be really good. I mean, we've talked about it, but this Maui Invitational field is just top notch.
Yep, and then tomorrow, I think tomorrow's of this week going to be the best day of basketball. We got the tip off in the Atlantis, the Battle for Atlantis. We got the first round there, which features a handful of top 50, top 100 Ken Palm games there. We're going to have the semifinals, or we're going to have the final and the third, fourth place game and the fifth, sixth place game of the Maui Invitational. So tomorrow going to be an excellent day of basketball. We'll be talking about all of those games. What other team or game I wanted to quickly touch on that I saw today? Florida State's playing Colorado in the final of some sort of tournament in Daytona Beach, Florida.
Sunshine Classic?
Yeah, like it's like the beach division of the Sunshine something or another down there in Florida. Colorado's number 24 in Ken Palm. Colorado is a team who, we know Tad Boyle. The Tad is mad chant, one of the dog packs, go-to chants. I forgot that they've still got Tristan DeSilva on the squad. They added
all Pac-12 player.
All Pac-12 player. They picked up a nice freshman this year. This is a team that going into the year, we talked about a little bit, this Colorado team potentially being the best one that Tad Boyle has ever had. Just the fact they're number 24 in Ken Palm makes it the second best team so far that he's had. They play a Florida State team that we've also talked about, got off to a rough start or struggled last year, kind of got off to a rough start to this season. I mainly just want to talk about because I was surprised. I forgot that Colorado was going to be this good, and I think this is a good chance for them. They took care of business against Richmond yesterday by 5. Any thoughts on this Colorado team? And they don't really play any. This is kind of their biggest non-conference game for the next few weeks. Any thoughts on what Tad Boyle's got at his disposal this year?
My main thing with Colorado is they have one of the college basketball players that I just love, and that's Eddie Lampkin. A big body inside, big boy coming over from TCU. Not the best big man in the country, but there's not many big men I like watching more than him play. So I'll be excited to try to check out Colorado tonight. 24 is high, but that said, I think the expectations are high at Colorado, and the seat could be getting a little warm for Tad Boyle. They're really going to be riding Tristan DeSilva this year. We'll see if Colorado can do it. I mean, the mountain schools, Colorado and Utah, both in the top 40 in Ken Palm, that bodes well for the Pac-12 when the mountain schools are good. They always say that's the toughest road trip in the Pac-12. So,
yeah, and we look at the line. I don't think I have a bet for this game, but it's 4.5 Colorado, 5.5 Florida State. So you probably expect that to be a little bit bigger just based on the Ken Palm. I think Ken Palm has the game as like a 7-point game. So yeah, the better so far, not quite is sold on Colorado as the numbers are, and that's why I think this is an interesting game because Florida State, they should be average this year. I don't think Leonard Hamilton's going to have 2 terrible teams in a row. So a game to watch if there's a break in the Maui Invitational. You don't have anything better to do at 4:00. Florida State's going to play Colorado, so an interesting game there, and one I'll have my eyes on just for keeping tabs on these teams going forward. All right.
Yep.
That's perfect. We let up 6 minutes just before the Syracuse versus Gonzaga game. That's going to get tipped off here momentarily. And then 8:00 and 10:30 tonight. They get to start a little bit earlier. I think I saw, does Hawaii have a home game after the Maui Invitational tonight?
I think that was scheduled before it got moved. So I think there's actually 5 games going on. And yeah, if you can't sleep tonight, or if you need to make some money back, your last chance is the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors.
Yeah, the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors taking on Northern Arizona tonight at 1:30 a.m. Eastern time. I think that's like 9:30 or something Hawaii time. But a truly comical situation is down there. The extra game post tournament will be taking place, and a blessing in disguise actually for me here in New York, because it was the 11:30 start last night was a little bit late, pushed my bedtime to like 2 a.m. last night after the UCLA Marquette game. So they have to start an hour earlier tonight because they needed to make room for that Hawaii game. So we're actually happy that that's taking place. And as you said, if all's gone wrong or all's going well, you're riding the heater. Tomorrow's Wednesday. Like, how hard are people working on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving? So there's the old late night Hawaii game for you.
Are they gonna change the court, or are they still gonna be run out there with the Maui Invitational court for the 5th game?
I assume they're going to run out the Maui Invitational court. Maybe then they should. Hawaii should play Chaminade too. Maybe tomorrow or after the day after the tournament in a little all Hawaii battle.
One last question for you. Why is there the NBA 3-point line on this court? I can't figure it out. Like, it's causing reviews on whether it's good for a three or not, and I'm so confused. Like, why there's an NBA? Like, is an NBA team practicing there?
That is a
they definitely
fantastic.
don't play games.
No, I don't think the NBA. Has there ever been an NBA game played in Hawaii?
No.
That's a great question. It did I think it popped into my mind, and then I didn't think anything more about it. But yeah, that doesn't make sense. And last night, when I was already getting upset with the officiating in the second half of the game last night, and then they come back from commercial break and they're like, yeah, they reviewed a three from like 6 minutes ago and they decided to add another. They gave UCLA a point. It was like 64-63 with like 2 minutes left. They go to commercial break. Marquette's going to the line for like 2 shots. They come back and UCLA's just got another point. And then they didn't show the replay. They were just like, we've given UCLA another point. They're like, we desperately want this game to go over, but we're not going to show you it. And I was like, what is going on?
The under prevails. The under prevails. I will say, though, they did go back and take away the goaltend. So, like, I guess a net -1 with the reviews last night.
The other exciting thing that I liked, and I think that they're going to be on the call for these losers bracket games because Bill Walton was pissed that they're going to have to call losers brackets games because that's just not what Bill stands for. I don't get as much Bill Walton as I did, living in Seattle. It was nice to have him back on the call last night, and it wasn't the same Roxy Bernstein's. It's not him and Roxy on the call. It's or Dave Pash. Some other guy is alongside him, but it was great to have Bill Walton on a close UCLA call last night.
Absolutely, definitely looking forward to the game tonight. I gotta go get my bets in. I got 2 minutes. Tennessee money line, baby.
All right, there you go, folks. We will talk to you tomorrow and enjoy the day.